everybody, welcome. How Sorry about that. I didn't mean to hit that so quickly. So today we're going to talk about subplans and what do we want to do with subs. If you're watching live, go ahead and share with us in the chat where you're watching from. So most of us are having problems with subs. Bobby is coming from Eastern Washington. Awesome. Derek is not sharing where he's from. Hello, Derek. So the problem with our subs is that we can't count on our subs to be able to speak the language that we teach in our classrooms. And so unlike math or social studies or English, where they can follow directions and do the lesson, they can't for us. So we need to find a solution where we're not relying on the subs to present material. And so I have a couple of ideas that I use that help me out tremendously when it comes to subs. I'm not often out, but I have a plan for when I am. So, the first, let's go here and switch this here. Bear with me 1 second. Let me get the right thing. There we go. So here is my solution. I have a couple of solutions. The first one is the least amount of effort on your part as the teacher, but it requires that the kids can do some language. So it's not really good for early on in level 1. And I call this my 4-part lesson plan because it practices all 4 components of language acquisition: listening, reading, speaking, and writing. And what's great about this, all the sub has to do is referee. They don't have to do anything else. They're keeping time. They're telling the kids what the next step is, but all the lesson is produced by the students. And so that's what I love about it. It requires no planning on my part. I already have pre-written instructions that I just copy and paste into my sub plans, so I don't have to even type them up. It's great. And what I use is, as I said, the 4 parts. So I have them start off. I divide my class into 4 sections. So depending on how long your classes are, you divide. So my classes are about 45 minutes. So each of my parts are about 10 minutes, and I leave a little bit of extra time for the last part. So the first part, I want my kids to write. So they're going to have a silent writing period for 10 minutes to write a story in the best language that they know how. All the sub has to tell them is to get out your paper to write a story. We got 10 minutes, time starting now. And then tell them when the time ends. It's perfect. Next is, after they've done that part, then they're going to form a group. Depending on how many kids in your class, you can figure out what the best number for your group is, and you're going to have them form a groups. And in that group, each student is going to read their story while the other kids listen to the stories. So now we've got writing done, we've got reading done, and we've got listening covered. So they're going to listen to those, and then they're going to choose one, their favorite one within their group. And they're going to then illustrate that. So if there are 4 people in the group, they're going to have 4 boxes, like a comic strip box. If there are 5 boxes. If there are 6 boxes. 1 box per kid. And it doesn't matter who draws the pictures. It could be each kid draws their own box, or it could be that one person draws the boxes for everybody. It really doesn't matter. And the artwork is not important. It's just their frame of reference to be able to talk about their stories. So we've got 10 minutes for the writing, and then we've got 10 minutes for the reading out of the stories and the listening. And then we have 10 minutes for the deciding which story they're going to do, drawing it out, and a little bit of practice. And then the 4th step would be that each group tells the story to the rest of the class. So, the sub will call up random groups. They will tell their story out to the class. The other students will be listening to that story. And at the end, they will vote overall in the class period what the best story was. But they can't vote for their own story. They have to vote for another story. And then whoever has the most votes, whichever story gets the most votes, will win, I guess. And then I give them a prize when I come back. So here in that aspect, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. They cover all 4 aspects of language acquisition. They're getting writing practice, they're getting listening practice, they're getting reading practice, and then they're getting speaking practice all in there. And then the kids are listening to the groups as they go along in order to be able to decide which story they like the best. And so it's a really great way to get all 4 things in. All the sub has to do is keep time and keep them on task, and that's all that they have to do. At the end of class, each group will put all their written stories in a pile with the chosen story on top, and on top of that would be the picture. So it's picture, chosen story, and the rest of the stories in the group. Those will be all paper clipped together. And then the sub will star the picture sequence that got chosen. That way I can verify that all the kids got credit to do with their little part. I can see who won to give them the prize. I can see who worked together, etc., etc., etc. And it's a really great and versatile solution. It's my go-to lesson plan. I use this one all of the time. Whenever I'm out for a day, this is what I do. Regardless, it's my easiest one. But, as I said, that doesn't always work for all classes, especially in the lower levels. Does anybody have anything that they do that's similar to what I do before I go into what I would do for lower levels? And you can also use this for upper levels too, but it's just a little bit more work on the teacher's part. But anybody else have anything that they do that's similar to my go-to sub-plan? Thank you for the like. I appreciate that. Okay, now there's a delay, so I'll keep talking. If we see anything pop up, then I will go back to that. My second solution, as I said, this one is a little bit more time-consuming on the teacher's part. But once it's done, it's done. So you can do it one of 2 ways. What I'm going to be talking about is a pre-recorded lesson, a video lesson. Kind of like the flipped classroom. So you can do it one of two ways. You can plan ahead and pre-record your videos, a generic lesson that can be used any time of the year, or you can create a lesson that applies to whatever you're working on at the time that you're going to be absent. That one takes a little bit more time because you've got, you don't know when you're going to be absent, then you got to create the video, and then you got to assign it. So I like the generic ones where it's a lesson and I can save it and I can use it year after year because it doesn't matter when. And it's even better, especially if you can make it apply to multiple levels at the same time. So it's even more generic, which helps those teachers who teach lesser taught languages like French or German or Mandarin, where you're the only teacher and you have 3 or 4 or 5 levels of language that you teach. But in this case, you're going to make a video. Now, what I recommend if you want to go for the free route is loom.com. Loom.com, and I'll type that here in the chat. Is similar to Screencastify, but it's free for educators. So you log in with you sign up with your school email, and then you don't have to pay. You get the version and all of its features without having to pay. Screencastify is another option. It does pretty much the same thing, but it is a paid option. They don't give a discount that I'm aware of for educators, so that's why I like Loom. I also prefer to have a circle picture off the side instead of the square one. Derek says, I usually create a digital worksheet using book widgets. I also love digital games. Leave digital games. Awesome. Another great ideas. Yes, before we were not one-to-one. We would have to book our Chromebooks. Since the pandemic, we're now one-to-one, so all our students have Chromebooks, so digital activities would work. But at one time, and for many teachers, they would not if they don't have their own device. But great idea. I usually don't do digital games with subs because they don't always have the best classroom management and it can get out of hand a lot. So I tend not to use those. But if that works for you, awesome. So as I said, I would use loom.com or Screencastify or any one of the screen recordings, and then I would record the lesson. So I'll make my lesson in a slideshow, and then I will be in one corner going through the lesson, doing what I want them to do, telling them what I want them to do, and all that the sub would have to do is play the video. My go-tos are usually stories. So I will create a story that I would script out, and I would ask the story in class with pauses to allow them to answer as a class orally. So I might go and say, I'll do it in English, but obviously it would be in the target language. I might say something like, there is a dog, and the dog eats a lot of food, and the dog likes to run. And then I'll say, class, is there a dog or is there a cat? And I pause for a moment. That's right, there's a dog. And class, what does the dog like to do? Awesome, that's right. The dog likes to eat. So I would do something like that. Or I could do a children's book. To eat a lot of food. Awesome. Yes, Derek. I also might do like a kindergarten style reading of a book. and I can read it on the video. I just can't make it publicly available because then you're breaking copyright, but I can read it on a video. And have kids ask questions. I answer questions about that. So if I'm reading like Brown Bear, or The Hungry Caterpillar, or something like that, then I can show the book. They can see the pages. We can talk about the pictures. We can talk about the action. All of those things, and I can ask my questions, giving pauses for the kids to be able to answer them. If you don't want to give pauses, you can present the story or present the reading if you're doing a kindergarten style, and then give kids a piece of paper with the questions that they'll answer. Comprehension questions about what they heard or what they heard and saw when it comes to a storybook. The beauty of these pre-recorded lessons is that if they're generic enough, they can be reused over and over again. Once you record them, you have them. You make a folder on a Google Drive or on iCloud or on I forgot what Microsoft's cloud-based is. But whatever you do, you put a folder there, you put in your sub-plans in there, those videos, and then you can just share them out with whomever needs them at the time. And you can have a stockpile. Another great option for the pre-recorded is cultural lessons. Those are especially generic because you can teach the culture in any level. They're not specific to a particular level or not. And you can teach it in the target language and have kids take notes and answer questions in English about the information. But those are some great things to do by making your those pre-recorded lessons. And as I said, they're very versatile and they take away a lot of the stress of you having to come up with an idea at the last minute if you make a couple of these in advance. So you can do this right before school starts, like in the summer, at the end of summer, or you can do it while school's going on and make maybe 1 or 2 a month. You want to get a stockpile so you have a couple of them to go to, and then you have the pre-recorded ideas. You have your pre-recorded ideas. You have your 4-part sub-plan. Then you have some options to use with the subs, and in both cases, the subs are not required to have to know the language or to be able to actually teach. All they need to do is be able to manage the class, keep time, give directions, and play a video. Does anybody have any questions or comments or ideas on their own about subplans that they do? Give it a couple moments because I know there's the delay. If you teach Spanish and your kids do 1-to-1, another idea would be Senor Wooly, but you have to pay for the yearly account for that. I think it's like $80 some. Yes, Senorita Thornton has just said, I've been using Senor Wooly, however, I would like to have options. Yes, that's always a workable if kids have access to the computers to use Senor Wooly. But again, that is a cost version. So there's a cost associated with that one. I can't remember, but I think it's about $85 a year to have access. It's a great resource, but it's a great resource for multiple different uses. Derek says, I always worry about being comprehensive when I leave materials for my students to listen to. I teach French and sometimes use Alice Ayel's stories on YouTube. That's a great idea. I was going to mention it and I completely forgot about it. Alice Ayel, there's a couple of them. There's Dreaming Spanish. There's Easy German. Those are the first three that come to mind on YouTube, to find stories also on YouTube that kids can use. And I'll get to your comment in just a moment, Julie. So that's a great thing. That's one thing that I do when I'm trying to be, when I'm doing a video one, I have, just like I would in my classroom, as I'm talking, I will write the vocabulary on the board. Obviously, it'll be on the screen here. So I will type the vocabulary up on the screen. Like I can show a Google Doc on one side, or do it something like that so you can, so the kids can make it more comprehensible. I speak much more slowly when I'm recorded. And as I said, I put the vocabulary up on the side. So similar to the way I have it right here, it'll be except I would be over here in the corner using Loom. I can put it on a Google slide. I know the vocabulary I'm going to be using, and I can put the vocab up so that they can see it while I'm talking. So that helps. But YouTube videos are awesome. I probably wouldn't use podcasts because they don't have a visual to go along with that, and you can't make it more comprehensible because you're not there. But with the YouTube videos, they do have a video and a visual that can comprehend. Excuse me. Lots of times you can put on closed captions so they can see, especially in French, to be able to see how the words are written that they're actually saying. That can help with comprehension. And Alice Ayel is awesome. Dreaming Spanish is another one that they do really, really well. They just have to get past the Spanish accent. It's really thick, but it's a Spanish from Spain accent. So once they get over that, they work really, really well. Easy German also works really, really well. So if you have that tech available, that's an option. Julie says, I have zero tech available. I end up providing coloring pages. So boring. So you don't even have, Julie, a computer that can project like a video? While she's answering that, there's not for sub teachers. Okay. Yeah, we have an iPad that stays in our classroom. I don't usually use it, though. What I usually do is I have a neighbor teacher. I keep my school computer there at school. I don't ever take it home. I keep it there, and I have a neighbor teacher log in for me and then log out for me at the end of the day. So that's how I handle that when I want them to project something because they don't have access to do it otherwise. So that's one way to do it. The other thing is you can do the first thing I talked about, the 4-step part. And I didn't even talk about it, but you could also write a reading for them to read. So you can make a story, make it really as easy as possible, gloss it so it has the words. And the way that I recommend you gloss it is not how books are normally glossed with either footnotes or a gloss at the end. I would highly recommend you gloss the words right next to it. So if I have the word árbol in Spanish, right next to it in parentheses, I'll have the word tree in English. Why? because a lot of kids have problems tracking. So they go here, they see audible, they see the number 1 there because it's got to go to a footnote. They go back to the bottom, they look for it, they find out the answer. Great. Now they can't find where they left off. It's even worse if they have to go to the back of the book or a different page, flip through, find the word, and then come back. So tracking is a problem for a lot of kids. And so by putting that word right next to the word that they don't know, keeps them right on track, keeps them with the flow. And then you can ask comprehension questions about the text. So that's another thing that you can do. Let's see here. Bobby says, I'm a first-year French teacher, so I'm trying to build up my stockpile. Yes, awesome. So you have your go-to, the 4-step plan for your French 2s and up. For your French 1s, that'll work towards the end of the year, second half of the year. But for the first part of the year, you're going to have to make some recordings, because I don't know of a website like Seigneur Woolley for French at this time, so I'm not familiar of one that you can use for that. You can also do some Google searches on YouTube to find some simple YouTube videos for them. Elise Ayel is a really awesome teacher. She lives in France. Actually, she may be outside of France now. She's a native French teacher, but she teaches sometimes outside of the country. She's an amazing teacher. She works really slowly. She draws her stories out on a whiteboard as she tells them. So it really works. It's really a great way. So do some YouTube searches so you have some go-to videos if that's an option for you. Even if it's not an option for you, let's say like Julie, where the teachers don't have access to project a video, if you know your kids either have devices or have cell phones that can get access to YouTube, you can give them the link to it, and then they can go right to it, listen to it with their headphones, which is another great solution for that. Julie says that's an idea. Awesome. It's a great idea. Thank you. You're very welcome. So we have this variety because unlike anybody else, we just can't have anybody show up and do our class. Like today, we didn't have enough subs. We had a lot of people out. We got some teachers out with COVID and some things, and I had to cover a 6th grade teacher doing science. Okay, no problem. I go to the classroom. They've got the lesson plans. I can follow the lesson plans and teach. It was a lab. So then I had some kids who didn't understand how to do. It was a pendulum lab that they had to do. They didn't understand the explanation that the teacher gave in the instructions. So I had to demonstrate how the lab worked. But I can do that. Any sub can do that. But if I give the same kind of instructions in a Spanish class or a French class or a German class or a Mandarin class or a Russian class, that's not going to be possible. And so we have to come up with these ideas, and we need to pre-think them, because in the moment when we have an emergency where we can't come to school, we get sick at the last minute, the last thing we want to think about is creating lesson plans. So having the lesson plans already created and videos pre-recorded is great. And as I said, I make templates. So in my school folder, I have a school folder for every school year. I will put a sub-plan folder in there, and I already have sub-plans written out. I have a generic page where it's my sub-notes. So I write notes about every class. Who's got health issues? Who's got 504s? Who's got IEPs? Who's got behavior issues? Which kids should never work together? Any other things that would help those teachers to be better teachers for that class? Any kind of notes there. So I have that already pre-written, already ready. And actually, because this doesn't change once I have my class of students, I print it out for the year and I put that in my red subfolder that I leave on my desk if I know I'm going to be absent, or it's in an easy place where I can tell the sub to grab it from when I didn't know I was going to be absent. Then I also have my sub plans, the daily plans, already written out. So I already have sub plans for the 4-step one, the listening, reading, writing, and speaking. I have that. So if I know I'm not going to be there, I can go ahead, share that with one of our secretaries. They print it out. They can hand it right to the sub right on the day. I already have my pre-recorded videos that I want to do. They're already there. And I have written sub-plans on how to use those videos and any copies. I'll already pre-make the copies and have that near my subfolder. So it's all ready. So if anything were to happen last minute, when I don't need to think about writing sub-plans, I already have them. I just have to share them. Copies are already made. If I don't have copies made, then I beg one of my colleagues to make copies for me, but I can share them the document. I don't have to rewrite it. It's already written. Bobby says that's a good option. Thank you. I love all the ideas. Great. Awesome. I'm glad. Derek says, piggybacking on your idea of culture, Scott, Carla Torini's Qui parle français is a good source of easy reading in French. It absolutely is. I take French classes on Sundays with Sabrina, Danielle, and Carla, and we often use as the backdrop for our lessons her books. So we'll take one of the people who, for those who don't speak French, it means who speaks French, and it's like a biography book of famous people who speak French. And so we have taken some of these and used them as the backdrop for, I think the lessons go for 6 weeks at a time. Each cycle goes for 6 weeks. And we use that as the backdrop. So we talk about these characters. They have an interview. So either, depending if it's a boy or a girl, if it's a girl person, then Sabrina will play the part of the biography, and then Daniel will interview them in French, or vice versa. And so we can use a lot of context. We do Google Maps to experiment, to explore the areas where they live. Obviously, you're not going to do that with your subs, but it's a great reading source, as Derek mentioned, for kids. And I'm not aware of something similar in Spanish. We obviously have a lot of easy readers, but usually not enough for a sub to work with and that kind of thing. So I would write my own story for subs. So again, I have a stockpile of stories that I've used, that I've written, and then that I will pass out to my kids when we need to. So great. It's a great... in fact, I think, let me see here. Bear with me just 1 second as I step away from my desk. I think I even have a copy of that book. Yes, I have at least the first edition of that book. So there it is, Qui parle français. And it is really easy French. So if you do teach French, this is one area where French has it and Spanish does not. And they're very easy. They're big print. They're spaced apart. They're not written in paragraph form. They're written in sentence form. So it is an awesome, awesome resource. Thank you for bringing that one up, Derek. Any other ideas that anybody has? So we've got the 4 parts. We've got pre-recorded videos. We've got YouTube videos that you can find online. You can pre-write stories. You can do culture. Even a cultural reading where they can read something, even if it's in English, they can do that. We have the Qui Parle Français books that you can read. We have lots of different options where all that the sub is doing is being the referee of the classroom, giving out the instructions, keeping time, collecting papers. And here's another suggestion. It has happened to me so many times where the subs completely disregard my lesson plans. And in one case, it was so necessary that they do the lesson plan as I designed it because it was in preparation for an assessment that was coming up. And they did not. They said this was stupid to the kids and didn't do it. So my suggestion is I have a class job that's my teacher's assistant. And when I know I'm going to be absent, I will print out my lesson plan and give it to the TA, not the teacher. And that way that holds the teacher responsible for doing the lesson that I designed. I tell those TAs too, if, to check your email if I'm not in class. If I'm not in class, pull up your email. I will have already emailed you the lesson plan so that you can see it and use it. Because I don't know why subs think that they can override my lesson plans, but some have done it. And so it caused a problem that one time because I thought they had all done something. Came back, I was doing the assessment, and they were completely lost because they hadn't done the prep work. So a little trick is I do give my lesson plans to my students so that they know what they're supposed to be doing, and then they can hold the sub accountable. And plus there's no questions as the sub didn't tell us that we had to turn this in, all those kinds of things. I've given them the instructions, it's right there. Any other ideas, comments, questions? How many of you are already back? We're starting our second full week. We started our second full week today. Senorita Thornton says, teachers this week, kids next week. Yeah, we went back. We were a little bit late this year. Normally we start back the first week of August, but we came back the second week of August this year. We go for the first 3 days, and the kids start on a Thursday. So that was a couple of weeks ago. Last week was our full first week, and then this is our full second week this week. Bobby says we start teachers next week, kids in 2 weeks. Oh, you get lots of time to plan in advance. We only get 3 days, and 2 of those days are taken up by meetings. Derek says we go back on August 30th. We see students on August 31st. Awesome. So this is a good time to start thinking about those plans. You got a little bit more time, even though you don't want to end your summer. But you might just pre-record one lesson that you could do. So you have at least one in there. And then for your levels 2 and up, you have that 4-part lesson plan. And in fact, I have a little handout. You can go to this link, mm.us/subplan. I believe that still works. Let me double check it just to make sure. So I'm giving this out. Subplan. Yes, that still works. You can download that no prep sub plan, that first one I told you about, the detailed instructions. You can get that right there by going to that link and downloading that if you haven't already done so. So if there are no other questions or comments, we'll go ahead and end today. I hope you come back next week. I've already planned, because some people requested we do one on homework. So next week we're going to have our immediate immersion live on homework. So if you want to take part in that, we'll be here again on Monday, same time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific. And you can always email me at scott@immediateimmersion.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any that come up later on. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you have a great rest of your week. And for those of you who have a little bit of summer left, enjoy what you have. You are so welcome, Senorita Thornton. Thanks so much. I love these meetings. Awesome. I'm glad. Derek says, thanks, Scott. You're welcome, Derek. Glad to have you with us today. So next week will be homework. I'll talk to you then. Enjoy, everybody, and I'll see you next week. Au revoir, adios, auf Wiedersehen.